Good morning, everybody. This video is about feeling pain in your relationship because you're married to someone who is emotionally avoidant. I made a much longer video in the members section going into more details about my own marriage, but here I'm just going to go into the generalities. If you want to watch the members video, then you can just subscribe and then hit the join button. People who are emotionally avoidant don't want to deal with things because it's scary to them. Probably as children, they had some kind of childhood emotional neglect where they didn't learn to develop their feelings, or they had to shut down their feelings. So they avoid any kind of conflict. They avoid any kind of closeness. They avoid any kind of intimacy. So it could look like you want to have a discussion about something. Now, I'm assuming you're not a nag and you're not a brute and that you're respectful, okay? You're probably more of like maybe a little bit more on the submissive, codependent side, a little bit more on the people-pleasing side, and the other person's a little bit more on the walled-off side. And this could look like you want to have a discussion about something and they never want to talk about it. It could be parenting, it could be finances, it could be where you live. They never want to talk about it. It could look like they don't care how you feel about it. Say you're talking about where to move to, like should we move to this city or that city? And they don't want to talk about it. They're like, we're moving to that city because that's what I want. I don't care what you want, more or less. They don't notice when you're feeling upset, or when you are feeling upset, they want to run and hide away rather than find out why you're upset, because your feelings scare them. They're scared of feelings. So when you're upset and they think it's about them, instead of addressing it, they want to run away because they don't know how to handle conflict. Maybe they never saw their parents handle conflict because they grew up in a home where expressing any kind of conflict was not allowed. Or maybe they grew up around their parents fighting a lot, and as children they learned to shut down when there was any kind of disagreement and freeze. And so when you bring up something, it just triggers the freeze response. These are unhealed people. They're very avoidant. It could look like when you're having sex, they never want to kiss you, or they never want to look at you, or they only want to do you in the doggy position because they don't have to look at you. The doggy style is the least intimate position, by the way. Avoidant men prefer doggy style, not because they like looking at your ass, because they don't want to look at your face. They don't want to be in a frontal position. Men who know how to emotionally connect prefer the frontal position. They may sometimes like the doggy style for a variety, but they prefer the frontal. They want to look at you, they want to hold you, they want to kiss you. They want to feel your breath in their ear. They crave that to feel turned on. Avoidant men don't want to kiss you during sex because they're afraid of the intimacy. The intimacy, maybe as children there's something wrong there in the emotional thing. Avoidant, they call it emotionally avoidant, but you can also think of it as walled off, afraid to feel. Maybe as little children, they were shamed, especially men, shamed for having feelings. Shamed for crying. Little kid falls off a bike and he cries, or, little boys have feelings too. Or little Johnny comes home and says, Billy didn't want to play with me today. He just played with the other boys. And little Johnny is feeling really sad. That's a normal feeling for a little child to have. Did you know that? The other little boys won't play with him. None of the boys want to play with him. They ganged up on him and he's feeling sad. What does dad say? Boys don't cry. Go hit him back. Go find something else to do. Very harsh. Ooh, little Johnny gets the message. Men don't feel. I'm bad. Feelings are bad. I gotta push this down. I can't let people see I have feelings. I can't express my feelings. It's not safe. I'm gonna get punished. I'm not good. So little Johnny grows up repressing all these feelings. This is more common in older men. It's less common in younger men. Men under 40 Men under 40 are raised in an age where we want to like be expressed. Little boys are no longer shamed for crying. Like moms got the message. All these books came out in the 90s when I was raising my kids about raising boys and how boys should have feelings and all that. So if you're married to someone who is avoidant, they grew up, they're dysfunctional in relationship. They can never be fully functional with someone who wants connection. They're best off marrying someone else who's avoidant, because then they will get along. If they can ever match up with another avoidant, I don't know. But that's going to feel painful to you. You want to connect, and this person's afraid to connect. And wanting to connect with someone who doesn't want us, whether there's someone who ghosted us or keeps telling us no, it's extremely painful. This is my opinion. I'm not a researcher or scientist or a therapist or anything like that, but it activates the attachment system in a negative way. I mean, it's a little thing like if I say hi to someone on, I'm going for a run and I say hi to someone, they don't say hi to me. It's like, it's like a little, it's not a lot. But if I'm repeatedly, if I'm married to someone and I want to connect with them and I want to delight in them and they close their eyes during sex and don't want to look at me, or they keep pushing me away, or they don't care how I feel and they don't want to have discussions and they don't want to go out with me, that's a lot more painful. And people can find very many different coping mechanisms to deal with this pain. They can find different hobbies. I'm just going to get into my cooking and get into my gardening and get into my books. I'm going to watch a lot of movies on TV so I don't have to think. I'm going to focus on my children, focus on my friends, focus on my traveling, focus on my social media, letting everyone think my life is so perfect because it's really not, but I don't want you to know that because it's so embarrassing. Maybe people distract themselves with alcohol or with pills, with an affair, all kinds of ways that people can distract themselves. When the real issue is they're just in the wrong relationship. And typically you will know that because if you're feeling in pain and you're saying, sweetheart, we should go to counseling. I'm really unhappy. I'm in so much pain. And that person doesn't even care. They don't notice it because they're closed off. Well, we don't have money for that. I need the money to fix the house, to buy a new car. We're going on a trip. We don't have money for that. I don't care about that. Everything's fine. Because then to them it's fine. When you come to your partner and say, I'm really unhappy, I need therapy or I need to talk, and they don't want to talk to you, run, because it never gets better. They never change. It would be very rare. They don't change. It never gets better. They're avoidant, and your pain will only grow. And eventually, you may end up shutting yourself down to deal with the lack of love. You have to harden yourself. You can't bask in the reciprocal love and connection and all that joy that it brings to be connected and to feel delighted in, to feel emotionally fulfilled. You can never get that. You can never get that. All you can do is turn to God maybe, or turn to something for solace. Your workouts, your God, if you're more on a healthy thing, your obsession with health, you got to obsess over something to distract yourself from the pain of this person that you're in an attachment relationship with as a couple, and they keep pounding you, pushing you away. And pushing you away is like a pounding to your heart. You got to harden it somehow or find solace somewhere. I'm just, at 63, I'm just done with that, but that's what I think. So usually the person who is walled off, they're not in any pain because they're walled off. They're not as aware of their pain. They don't even notice when they're feeling angry. They don't notice how you feel. And I think we should have a lot of sympathy for them because they're cut off from their human experience. But that doesn't mean we have to stay with them. And in some cases, leaving that person, you could be like, okay, if you don't go to therapy with me, I'm just going to leave. I've had it. Of course, you don't say that right away. This is after years of trying to get them to work on stuff. And then maybe they could say, oh my God, I don't want to lose you. I'm going to go to therapy. That sometimes happens. But usually what happens is, God, I don't want you to leave. Why are you leaving? Everything's fine. Everything's fine the way it is. We don't have to talk about stuff. Why do you have to go? Don't go. But I need you to change these things. Well, honey, you know I can't change these things. It's just how I am, but don't go. I'm so sad, okay? If you're going to go and then they just let you go, because letting you go is easier than looking at themselves. When you're dealing with an avoidant, they would rather have you leave than have to look at their avoidance, because it's too painful for them to be with their feelings. It's too painful. Too painful. They can't do it. Can't do it. It takes courage to feel and to express your feelings in a respectful way to another person. So, yeah, they would rather have you leave. So I would say really, really, if you're married to an avoidant, oh my God, bless your heart, because it's not a happy marriage, in my opinion. And they don't want to change. So when people come to me and they go, oh, I'm really unhappy in my marriage, I will always ask them, have you gone to therapy? No, we haven't gone. Okay, well then, therapy isn't the first place you go. You always try to work things out with your spouse. But if you can, you're like in an impasse, and you're like, we need another party to help us, to see where each of us is stuck in some way, to see where each of us can take some responsibility for shifting how we see things, like a behavior and in a relationship pattern we need to change, to get some validation that our pain is real, to have like a neutral third party to help us work through some of these things. But if your spouse isn't even talking to you, then therapy is no point. But if they are talking to you and they don't want to go to therapy, I always say that person is the problem. The person who won't go to therapy is the closed off avoidant one, and they're the problem, because the person wanting to go to therapy is like, I'm trying all these things. I'm reading books. I'm trying this. I'm trying that. I'm trying to be more loving. I'm trying that. And none of it is working. Like, I need some more additional help for our relationship. And this person is going, well, everything's just fine. I don't know why we need to change anything. I don't want to spend the money on that, because I'm fine over here in my little walled off castle with the moat around me. I have this moat around me. I'm just fine. I don't want you to penetrate my moat. And this person's like, but I'm living over here and my castle is here and your castle is here. I want to combine. So that person is the problem, and they're not going to change. Most people never change. It's very rare that people change. Sometimes after divorce, people get an insight like, okay, I need to do better with my next marriage. These are the mistakes I made. But anyway, I made a members only video going into more details of my own marriage. You can join to watch if you want, but otherwise, suffice it to say that there's nothing you can do with an avoidant other than distract yourself or leave them, in my opinion. But what do you think? Have you ever been in a relationship with an avoidant? A good person, a responsible person. They work out, they do the household chores, they respect you, they make sure, the kids respect you, they go to work, they have friends too. They're not bad people. They're fully functional, but they're cut off from their own emotions. And so they don't want to deal with anything that's emotional. Your feelings, your affection, your closeness, dealing with conflict, talking about conflict, all of that scares them. So they just freeze up. They just freeze, and it's very sad for them. Very, very sad. Very, very sad for them. But they don't feel sad because they're just fine. They're walled off. They're just fine. So this is how I think they feel based on having been married to an avoidant. That's how I think they feel. But what do you think? I'll be back for the comments.